We are starting week 5, lesson 1. After this activity, you want to be able to categorize words based on our controlled pattern in one-syllable words, and we are going to be able to interpret and apply the spelling procedure for the sound in words. The first sound we're going to discuss is the AR, which says R, like car. So when we talk about this, we're going to say AR, car, R. Go ahead and say that back to me. AR, car, R. Some examples, like I said before, car, you break it and you have k-r. R would be at the end of the word. You could also have a word like farm, f-arm. Notice in this case, the R comes in the middle of the word with 2 consonants on either side. A word like smart has 4 sounds, s-m-art, and that AR comes together. Notice how the R controls the sound of that A. A word like arch has the R sound coming at the beginning of the word, so AR can come at the beginning of the word as well. The next R-controlled pattern is OR. An example of this in our letter sound correspondence is OR, horn, OR. So if you could say that back to me, OR, horn, OR. Our first word we're going to talk about is the word pork. In this case, we have a consonant on either side of the OR. So you have p or k. Our next word is storm, and in this case, you have 4 sounds, and they are st or m. That st at the beginning would be a blend. Next, we again have it closed in with 2 letters, b-orn, born. The next word has a digraph in it, the CH digraph. So we have t or ch. Here's the word fort, f-ort, fort. And last, we actually have one that contains the OR, but it also contains an AR. It's a multisyllabic word, so we're going to be getting to that more in the next lesson, but we'll go ahead and read it together. Orchard, orchard. For this last one, we're going to talk about the sound. But the sound is a little bit complicated because with you can actually have 3 different ways to spell it. Sometimes is spelled with ER, sometimes it's with IR, and sometimes it's with UR. So our sound correspondents are going to be ER, heard, Say it back to me. ER, heard, The next one is IR, bird, Say it back. And the last one is you are burn-er. So if you can say that one back to me, you are burn-er. Let's talk about our controlled vowels and what we need to know about them. The first thing we need to know is that usually these words in a syllable would be closed and the vowel would be short. However, because of the R, this is not the case. This vowel is controlled by the R in the word. The R only controls the vowel when it comes after the vowel. So if you see a word that has R and then a vowel, it is not an R-controlled vowel word. We're going to take some time to mark some R-controlled words together. I'm going to start with the word north. And I want you to notice that the first thing I do is I mark that this word is one syllable. And I notice because of the OR that it's an R-controlled syllable. So I'm going to mark it with the R underneath to represent R-controlled, and I'm going to circle the pattern that's R-controlled. I'm going to do the same thing with the word stern. I'm going to underline it to show it's one syllable. I'm going to mark R-controlled underneath, and I am going to circle the R-controlled pattern. The next word, start. I want you to tell me what I'm going to underline, what I'm going to write, and what I'm going to circle. So take a moment to decide, what should I draw, what should I write, what should I circle? What you should have said or thought is that I'm going to underline the word start because it is one syllable. I'm going to write an R underneath It's kind of hard for me to write underneath. And I'm going to circle that AR to show that that is what is controlled by the R, is the A. I'm going to write another word over here for us to talk about, and this is the word swerve. Notice that in this case, I still have that sound, which is the R controlled, but I also have a silent E at the end that I'm going to cross off. I want you to notice that this V in between is going to be important for our next conversation. The V in between allows this to still say So we're going to talk about why that's important on the next slide. We are going to take time to discuss VCE versus R controlled and which one wins out in different situations. So let's look first at two words that have either the R controlled, VCE, or what appears to be both. In this first word, car, I'm going to underline it as I said before, it's one syllable. And I'm going to notice that that AR there is what I hear R. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write R controlled beneath it. But when I look below at the word care, notice that I don't hear the R sound. I don't hear the AR sound together. What I hear is I hear the long A. So in this word care, the VCE is actually what wins out. And so instead, I have the long A sound, and I'm going to cross off the E. The reason that this is important is that words with a VCE pattern and are controlled, the VCE is usually stronger. Not always, but usually. VCE is stronger than the R controlled with AR, E, ERE, IRE, and URE. Notice that ORE is not on this list. It's what we're going to talk about next. So in words that have ARE, ERE, IRE, and URE, we are going to make sure that the VCE is what's heard in those words. Some examples are words like wire, pure, mirror. Notice in the word wire, I hear that long I sound, wire. So this is VCE, stronger word. Pure, I hear the U sound, and it's stronger. Same with mirror, I hear the E sound, it's a stronger sound. ORE works differently than the other vowel sounds with RE, so we're going to look at that and how that works now. We're going to do that by marking these words. In the word corn, I hear the OR as an R controlled sound, as always. When I look at ORE in the word core, it also seems to dominate by the R sound. So what's important to note is that ORE follows a different rule than the other VCE pattern words. In this case, ORE sounds exactly like OR. Some examples are words like tour, soar, or snore. I would mark those the same way, making sure to recognize the R control in this word. Spelling with the sound can be a challenge because there are 3 different ways to correctly use this sound. So what we're going to talk about is how we can use spelling option procedure to help us. And what we would do by doing that is we would plug each one in to see how it would look. So I could try out each one to see which one looks the best. In this case, I could try out ER and see that that doesn't look correct to me and erase it. I could then try IR and decide that I don't like the look of that either. Hopefully one of them is going to look correct to you and you're going to be able to decide that that's the most likely answer. So in this case it's going to be UR. I can look at curve and I might not even need to look at each option, I might just know. So if you just know, go ahead and say what you're thinking. If not, follow along with me as I test the different options. As you see the answer that looks correct to you, go ahead and write it down on your page. And we're going to decide on UR as our answer. The next one is smirk. I can again try them out, but if I start them and I see that there's one that looks correct, I might just stick with it. Oh, it looks like it's IR. I didn't realize I had added the R in there already for you guys. I'm so sorry. The next one is burnt, but I might focus on the part that says burn, and maybe I already know to spell burn with a UR, and so burnt will be the same way, and I don't have to go through this whole process. The next one is chirp. I can again try different options and decide which one looks the best. In this case, I like the IR. And the last one is thirst. And maybe I already know that that one's IR without even having to look. That's fine too. So we're going to practice searching for words by doing an alphabetical search. And our letter boards at school looked like this, and I know you don't have access to these at home, so I want you to be able to see the letters in order. Remember that we have line 1, and that's A through F. We have line 2, which is G through L. We have line 3, which is M through S. We have line 4, which is T through Z. So as I show you some words, I want you to help me decide which line they go with, and then we will go from there to help put them in order. So the first word I want to talk to you about is the word snake. So let's decide which line snake would go in. It should be line 3. I can then look at the word lamp. Lamp would go in line 2. Then I could look at the word hat. And as I look for the H within the lines, I'm going to find it also is in line 2. This is going to help me as I'm putting my words in alphabetical order because now I have to decide between these two which one to put first, and I know that this one will be last. So as I look at these lamp and hat, I can see where they fall, and that will help me to put them in order. Hat, and then lamp. A more challenging scenario is going to have you looking at words that have the same first letter. So we're going to take some time to do some looking at that in order to determine how that can help us as well. So let's look at these words together. In words like this, you have to look beyond that first letter. Car, cotton, clash, crazy. So in this case, every single word I've given you starts with the same first letter, which means that we can't decide just based on the fact that they're all in line 1 and they all start with the letter C. So we're going to look beyond that at the second letter of the word. In the word car, it's an A, which would be line 1. In cotton, it's an O. This would be line 3. In clash, we have an L. This would be line 2. And in crazy, we have an R. This would also be in line 3 like cotton, but notice the R comes after the O. So then we can start to put them in order. Car was in line 1. Clash was in line 2. And then I told you cotton and crazy are both in line 3, but we look at how O comes before the R. So we're going to write cotton and then crazy. These are our high frequency words for this week, and oftentimes with high frequency words, the reason they're important is because they might have the pattern of letters, but they don't necessarily follow our typical rules, so they're ones that you have to learn by sight and recognize. So we're going to look quickly at these words and talk about them. The first word is large, spelled L-A-R-G-E. I want you to take time to write that on whatever surface you're working on with your finger. So just take a moment to write those letters, L-A-R-G-E. In a moment, I want you to think of a sentence that you could use for the word large. Next, we're going to talk about the word very. And very is one of the high frequency words because that sound is not what you hear. We don't say very, we say very. So that's why it classifies as a high frequency word. I want you to go ahead and whatever surface you have, write the word very. V-E-R-Y. V-E-R-Y. I want you to take a minute, come up with a sentence that would go with the word very. Okay, the next word that you have is the word year. I want you to look at that word. Notice the spelling is Y-E-A-R. Go ahead and write it down on whatever surface you're working on. Y-E-A-R. Y-E-A-R. And then I want you to come up with a sentence that could use the word year. Like, I hope to see you again before the end of the year. Okay, the last word is the word every. Every. Go ahead and spell this on whatever surface you have in front of you using your finger. E-V-E-R-Y. E-V-E-R-Y. Come up with a sentence for the word every. Let's quickly talk about and mark the demonstration words that go with this week. The first one is the word harsh. So what I'm going to mark is that this is one syllable and it has the AR sound, so it's an R controlled syllable. Then I'm going to look down to perch and I'm going to notice something very similar. It's one syllable, I see the ER, and it's an R controlled syllable. Let's go ahead and talk about these words. Harsh, the meaning of harsh is that something is extremely hard to deal with. A sentence might be, the harsh words made me very cold, or the harsh words made me feel very badly. The meaning of perch is to sit on top or on a ledge. So an example sentence would be, the owl did perch on that branch. Go ahead and come up with a sentence for harsh and for perch. As a review of today's learning, today we determined how to create and read R-controlled vowels. We gained an understanding of VCE words with R-controlled vowels. We learned the spelling procedure with We were applying alphabetical order to words. And we had an introduction to our high frequency and demonstration words. We are in week 5. This is lesson 2, still talking about R-controlled words. After this activity, we're going to be able to apply suffixes to R-controlled words and apply the 1-1-1 rule to R-controlled words. So as we discussed before, we're going to talk about how we can take words and put them in alphabetical order based on what we see in the word. And we're going to look at a variety of words in this lesson. We're going to look at bosses, bill, rapid, insist, band, conflict, and determine how we can put these words in alphabetical order based on what we see. So the first thing we can notice is that there are some words in here that do have the first starting letter. So we are not going to be able to put them in order just by the first letter. We can look at the others to determine where they go, but we can notice that this first letter of B is going to be the earliest first letter. So all of these three need to come first. We can then look at what comes afterwards. We see that conflict also falls in line 1. We can notice that insist would fall at I in line 2. And we can notice that rapid would fall on line 3. So we're going to go ahead and start at the bottom and write the words that we know go at the bottom, rapid, above that insist in line 2, and in line 1, but still behind our 3 B words that we have, would be the word conflict with a C. So let's look at the words that start with B. We notice that we can now look to the second letter in each of these words to determine which one would come next. We see that one of them has an A, an I, and an O. We can notice that when we look at our chart with the lines, our words, we see that A falls in line 1, I falls in line 2, and O falls in line 3. And that makes it much easier for us to go ahead and determine this. So that means that band will come first, followed by bill, and right before conflict, we'll have the word bosses. Which for some reason did not want to write. We are going to take a little bit of time to review the types of suffixes that we've learned. Remember, we've learned about vowel suffixes, which are suffixes that start with a vowel, and we've learned about consonant suffixes, which are suffixes that begin with a consonant. Remember, the initial vowel suffixes we learned were ones like ing, says ing, ed, which can say ed, d, or t. We also learned es initially for words like benches. We learned later ones like est and For consonant suffixes, we learned suffixes like s on the end of a word. We also talked about suffixes like full, ness, less, and meant. We're going to be using these types of suffixes with our R-controlled words, and we're going to learn about the rules associated with doing these with R-controlled words. So let's talk about applying the spelling rules with R-controlled words. The first thing I want you to realize is we're still going to be looking at the 1-1-1 spelling rule and talking about that. This only works with 1-1-1 words. With an R-controlled words, there cannot be a consonant after the R. The R has to be the consonant we're talking about in the 1-1-1 rule. Examples are words like, remember the 1-1-1 words we talked about before, thin, but when adding a consonant suffix, you leave it exactly the same to get a word like thinly. When we add our vowel suffix, we need to do the extra N to make the word thinner. So let's look at some words that would work and follow this 1-1-1 spelling rule. The first word is spark. Notice I have spar, but I have this K on the end, so that does not work. Let's look at the next word is blur. You end the word with a UR. So in this case, you have one vowel followed by one consonant, and it's a one-syllable word. So blur is a 1-1-1 word. If I were to write the word blurry, I would need to add an extra R. For the word turf, notice there's an F that follows that R. In this case, it is not a 1-1-1 word. In the word squirt, again, you have a T that follows that R, so it is not a 1-1-1 word. In scar, you end with this AR, so scar is a 1-1-1 word. Were has IR at the end. it's one syllable with one vowel. It is a 111 word. And in curl, you have R followed by an L, so this is not a 111 word. Next, we're going to talk about silent E. Words with the silent E, the E is still dropped when the vowel suffix is added. Examples of these are words like nerve, swerve, and serve. And in all of these, remember, we're talking about ones where you have an additional consonant added on. So in all of these, it's this V. In order to make this work, say I were to do the word nervy, I would write nerve without the E and add a Y on the end. We are going to practice with some words, determining the base word, the suffix, whether the base word was added, and how. So let's talk about some words. In this case, we're going to look at some words that really are not impacted. In this case, you have the word chirp with an S ending. You have dark with EST added on. You have harsh with li added onto it. And you have nerve with S added onto it. Notice that in these words, the base words stay the same even when the suffix is added on. Some of these suffixes are consonant suffixes, which is part of the reason. With the word darkest, even though a vowel suffix is added, dark does not follow a 111 word rule or a silent E rule, so it's going to stay the same. For the next set of words, we are going to notice some change in our base words. So we're going to look at these words a little bit more closely. Let's look at chirp, nerve, swerve, and serve. They are almost all missing something. Chirping is very similar to chirps. Even with the ing, it's like the word dark. It has an RP, so it is not going to change. It stays the same. But as you look at the other three, there is a change that happens. Each of these words used to have an E at the end of the base word. And each of these words is now missing the E at the end of the base word. Instead, it's been replaced by the vowel suffix. In one word, a Y, and in the other two, ing. The vowel suffix, the vowel that's on the suffix, did the job of replacing the E, which is why that has happened. In our last set of words, we're going to notice that our base words have been altered in order to add on a vowel suffix. We have the words star, spar, stir, and blur. And we've added on ing, ing, ed, and ed. Each of these is a vowel suffix added onto a 111 word with an R ending. So in this case, each one has had an R added as a bonus letter, an additional letter, in order to make the word stay what it is. And so instead of ending up with the word staring, by adding the extra R, I keep it star as starring. So let's talk about creating these kinds of words by using the suffixes that I've provided. So we're going to first look at this word starve and add an ing ending. So we have a vowel suffix that we're adding. Remember, in this case, I'm going to have to take this E off in order to make the word starving because the I takes the place of that E. So I'm going to write S-T-A-R-V, and then instead of writing my E, I'm just going to write I-N-G. In my next word, nervy, it's going to be very similar. In this case, I have the word nerve, and I'm adding a Y. I know that my E is going to need to be taken off because the Y makes a vowel sound, so it's going to work as a vowel. So in this case, I'm going to write N-E-R-V-Y. For the next word, I'm looking at a 111 word because in this case, I have one consonant after the vowel. It's one vowel, and my word is a one-syllable word, and I'm adding on a vowel suffix. So in this case, I'm going to need to do something different. I'm going to be looking at doubling that R to make the word blurry. And in my last one, I have the word scar. Notice if I just combine these without doing an extra step, I'm going to have the word scared, and that is not the same thing as the word scarred. So in this case, I need to make sure that I follow the 1-1-1 procedure because there's one consonant after one vowel, and it's a one-syllable word. So in this case, I'm going to write S-C-A-R. I'm going to do an additional R, E-D. And so in this case, I have the word scarred. The 4 high-frequency words for this unit are as follows. We're going to talk about them together. The first one is the word learn. I want you to spell this using your finger on whatever surface is nearby. Learn, L-E-A-R-N. L-E-A-R-N. Go ahead and make a sentence for yourself using the word learn. Next, I want you to look at the word for. This for is like the number 4. Okay, so we're talking about 4 of something. So in this case, I want you to spell it for me using your finger on a surface, and then we're going to come up with a sentence. F-O-U-R. F-O-U-R. Go ahead and come up with a sentence, making sure that your sentence talks about something that has 4 of something, the number 4. An example would be, I could say, my son is 4 years old. Make sure that your 4 is the same as my 4. In the next sentence, I'm going to talk about the word hour. This hour is talking about the hours on a clock. It's talking about an hour to do something. And this one has an H at the beginning. So we're going to spell this one out using our finger. The word is hour, H-O-U-R. H-O-U-R. Come up with a sentence talking about the hours on a clock. And the last word is our, like we are going to our favorite place. So in this case, you don't have the H on the word. It's, go ahead and spell O-U-R. O-U-R. Come up with a sentence to go with the word our, like our favorite place to be. So the last thing we're going to do is go over our demonstration words. And I'm going to talk to you about marking these words, and then we're going to talk about what they mean. This first word, nerve, I can mark by drawing a line underneath of it because it's one syllable. I can cross off the E because the E is silent at the end. I am also going to mark that it's R controlled because I can hear this ER sound, The next word, blurry, I can mark the word blur as being a base word. I can mark the additional R as being added in order to show the 1-1-1 rule, and I can mark the Y as a suffix. In this case, this UR is circled because it makes the R-controlled sound blurry. So when I look at both of these, the meaning of nerve is having courage when something is difficult or scary. A sentence example is, I have never had the nerve to climb the old tree in the yard. For the word blurry, the meaning is that something is fuzzy and difficult to see. A sentence that you could use with that would be, without my glasses, the blackboard looks fuzzy to me. I want you to go ahead and try and come up with your own sentence to go with nerve and your own sentence to go with blurry. Let's take a moment to review today's learning. Today we applied suffixes to our controlled vowel endings. We applied the 1-1-1 rule and silent E rule to our controlled words. And we introduced new high frequency and demonstration words.